Hello, this is Ron Paul with your weekly update for Monday, February 23rd. Last week, Ukraine saw its worst violence since the breakup of the Soviet Union over 20 years ago. Protesters occupying the main square in the capital city of Kiev clashed with police, leaving many protesters and police dead and many more wounded. It is an ongoing tragedy, and it looks like there's no end in sight. The current conflict stems from a divide between western Ukraine, which seeks a close association with the European Union, and the eastern part of the country, which has closer historic ties to Russia. The usual interventionist in the United States has long meddled in the internal affairs of Ukraine. In 2003, it was the U.S. government money that helped finance the Orange Revolution, as US-funded NGOs favoring one political group over the other were able to change the regime. These same people have not given up on Ukraine. They keep pushing their own agenda for Ukraine behind the scenes, even as they ridicule anyone who claims U.S. involvement. A recent leaked telephone conversation between two senior government officials made it clear that not only was the U.S. involved in the Ukrainian unrest, the U.S. was actually seeking to determine who should make up the next Ukrainian government. Senator John McCain, who has made several trips to Ukraine, recently to meet with the opposition, wrote last week that the U.S. must stand up to support the territorial integrity of Ukraine, including Crimea. Why are U.S. government officials so eager to tell the Ukrainians what they should do? Has anyone bothered to ask the Ukrainians what might help alleviate the ongoing violence and bloodshed if the Ukrainians decide to remake the country as a looser confederation of regions rather than one tightly controlled by a central government? Perhaps Ukraine engaged in a peaceful trade with countries both to the west and east would benefit all sides. But outside powers seem to be fighting a proxy war, with Ukraine suffering the most because of it. If you ask most Americans how they feel, my bet is that you would discover that they are sick and tired of the U.S. government getting involved in every crisis that arises. Certainly, the American people want none of this intervention in Ukraine. They understand, as recent polls have shown, that our interventionist foreign policy is only creating more enemies overseas. And they also understand that we are out of money. We cannot afford to be the policeman of the world, even if we want to be. And I bet if we ask the Ukrainians, a vast majority of them would prefer that the U.S. and Russia and the European Union stay out of their affairs and respect their sovereignty. Is it so difficult to understand why people resent being lectured and bribed by foreign governments? All we need to do is put ourselves in the place of the Ukrainians and ask ourselves how we would feel if we were in the middle of a tug-of-war between a very strong Canada and on one side and a very strong Mexico on the other side. We would resent it as well. So let's keep our hands off Ukraine and let them solve their own problems. Thanks for calling this update. A new update is placed on this number, 888-322-1414, every Monday. The written text can be found on my free foundation website at www.the-free-foundation.org and on my Facebook page.